Hello and welcome back to the latest episode of the Master None podcast. I'm your host, as always, Stephen Murphy. Joined tonight by special guest, we have Gary Sommerville AKA PaddyPigskin. Gary, thanks very much for joining us. How are you?
Not bad, Stephen. Thanks very much for having me on.
No
Appreciate it.
problem. I'm sure you're excited like I am. We've got some NFL football back, which a few months ago did not seem like that would possibly be the case. I'm sure, like everyone else, are you just kind of buzzing to get a bit of football back into your life?
Oh, Jesus, yeah. I think America in particular needs it because it's been, I don't need to remind people how grim it's been here over the last few months with COVID and all. So I feel like America just needs a bit of hope. And I think that hope comes in the form of being able to switch off from the outside world on a Sunday or, in this case, a Thursday night and, sit down for a few hours and just trying to forget about what's going on outside those walls of your house and just watch a bit of football. So yeah, certainly excited to have it back.
Yeah, it is. I'm an NBA fan first and sort of went to NFL, but I never sort of grasped until recently just like NFL is America's number one sport and it's not really close, is it? It's by far the biggest sport in America.
Yeah, I just the game of football in particular, because you'd have a lot of cities that don't have a pro team, and that's why their college team is so fucking big. You'll have, the likes of, Columbus, Ohio, for example. I'm an Ohio State fan myself. Like the whole city of Columbus comes to a standstill. 90, 100,000 people going to a game. It's just like when football season is on, that's just how it is. There's not much other sport going on because by the time winter comes along, some of the other sports might be starting, but they're only at the very beginning stage. They're not in the playoffs or anything like that. And that's when football starts heating up. So yeah, I think Sunday's pretty much over here anyway, is basically football from 1 p.m. on a Sunday to whenever you fall asleep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And some of the London games as well, it's like, it starts out like 8 a.m. in like the West Coast, and it must be just like waking up to football and then football for the rest of the day. It must be, the dream for some people, obviously. But
yeah, I remember going to a game on it was actually the Giants and the Eagles a few years ago, and I was in San Francisco at the time, and the bars and all were open at 10 a.m. I was like, Jesus, this is great. Sitting in a pub here at 10 a.m. watching football, it was a great experience.
That's a slippery slope over the rest of the day.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Cool. Do you remember the result by any chance? Or?
Yeah, unfortunately, it was the game where Jake Elliott hit like a 64-yard field goal to win it for the Eagles. Yeah.
Went his paycheck.
Yeah, he just hit an absolute bomb and that was it, yeah. So just one of the many heartbreaking times the Eagles have snatched a win out of the jaws of defeat against the Giants, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, before we get into sort of our topics of the conversation, you're a Giants fan, but as people probably can tell, originally Dublin, you're living in Boston. How has the Giants fandom, how has that come about?
So I got into football, my dad, like a lot of people, he started watching it around 85, 86, because he tells me that the Super Bowl between the Bears and the Pats, that was the first one that was actually shown on British and Irish TV back then. And then I came into his life and ruined it in 1986. So the amount of football he's watching then probably dropped dramatically. But I got into football with him. I'd watch NFL Blitz on Channel 4 and, every now and then I'd stay in the pub with him after the Premier League games on a Sunday and he might ask the barman to knock on the NFL for an hour or two. So yeah, I got into it with him and he's a Jets fan and he's got family in New York. And I was like, fuck that. I'm not going to be a Jets fan because they don't win. So the logical choice then was to pick the Giants just to piss him off. So that's how I became a Giants fan. And yeah, because he has family in New York, a lot of my first football exposure would have been, being in New York City and seeing Giants and Jets gear all over the place. So but yeah, living in Boston, it's interesting for obvious reasons, but probably one of the few fan bases that can actually talk shit to Patriot fans because all you got to do is talk about 42 and 46 and the shit talking dries up fairly quickly. So
it is. It's mad to think like the dynasty that has been the Patriots, and it was Eli Manning and just two Super Bowl finals where he just became this incredible quarterback, and then it stopped basically the Patriots from barely have six. So you could have had 8 without it is, as a Giants fan, because it hasn't been great for the last couple of years So it's always, I'm sure it's nice to look back in those kind of days and be like, you know what, there's still hope.
Yeah, I always say Bill Belichick helped the Giants win 4 Super Bowls because he won 2 as a defensive
Oh,
coordinator.
yes, right.
And then he rolled over for 42 and 46. So
yeah.
people forget that the Giants showed him how to win Super Bowls before he became a Patriot.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It's good. It's good banter. Like a lot of my friends here, Bostonians, the crack does be flying, and they understand the Irish kind of banter side of things. So they don't get too butthurt over it. It's just a bit of crack at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, it's sport at the end of the day. But we'll talk about the Giants kind of later on. I said I would leave that towards the end. But what we'll do is we'll start with the AFC. I've kind of taken a couple of topics of conversation that I think will be that sort of interested me, and you know, it's my podcast, so I'll do what I want. You know what I mean? That's what that's the way I've been looking at it. So we'll start off the AFC.
Nice to be on the other side. Nice to be on the other side of the table for once.
I know. I'm just asking for someone to interview me. I'm like, I'll answer questions sometimes. We'll start off. I think we can't start in the AFC obviously without talking about the big dicks basically of the AFC, which is the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes signing obviously one of the most ridiculous contracts. Well, not ridiculous in the sense of he's definitely worth it, but the numbers are mind-boggling. I think is it in around the $500 million mark over 10 years, something insane like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's crazy.
Obviously, if he continues his production the way he is, it'll be a bargain in years, probably 7 to 10, knowing how the cap will probably go up. But I think the main question in around this, the Chiefs, is it, can they be stopped, or is this a dynasty for the next 2 to 3 years looking forward?
Well, I think the first thing the Chiefs have against them straight off the bat is history, because it's actually very hard to repeat a Super Bowl win. The last team to do it was the New England Patriots back in 2005. So it's been 15 years since the team has gone back to back. So it's just historically a difficult thing to do. It's, you know, with the salary cap and the way the draft system is designed, the league is designed for teams to go 8-8, and all you got to do is look at the strength of schedule for teams, and you know the difference is the easiest is like 0.43 and the most difficult is 0.54. So it just kind of shows you like the spread across. When you look at the spread, like all the teams are fairly grouped together, so they have that going against them. History is against them, but you know he is special. Mahomes does things that nobody else can do, and you know, part of it's probably grown up with his dad, who was a Major League Baseball player for a long time. And you can see elements of his throw motion. He's able to hit that sidewind or throw across the field. And, you know, there's not many quarterbacks that can do that. He's just able to conjure up a bit of magic. And it helps that he has ballers like Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, who can, you know, Tyreek Hill in particular can do some crazy shit that not many wide receivers can do. So I think he's got that in his favor, and he has all 4 starting receivers from last year are all back, with Watkins, Hill, you've got Hardman as well, and Robinson. So, like, you know, a lot of guys returning, which is generally a good thing. Typically, you see with Super Bowl winning teams, a lot of guys leave because they want to cash in on their recent success and get bank from another team as a free agent. But the fact that a lot of the guys actually stayed there is a huge win for the Chiefs. He'll have some familiarity there with the lads around them. So definitely going to be tough to stop. You want to think so for the Chiefs, giving away that sort of money. It's completely like reset the market for a quarterback. It's going to be very difficult to justify paying him that unless they're constantly in the title game or the Super Bowl every year.
The baseball contract that they basically give him, the length and the money. And as you said, if he continues the way he is, obviously, because I've seen him. Recently interviewed. He said, "I finally starting to figure out how to play quarterback." He was sort of just winging it before this. It's just like what it's incredible. Like I seen Peyton Manning was 26 before he won his first playoff game or something ridiculous, and Mahomes is 24. Is he 24?
Yeah, he's a young fella. Yeah, I think
it's so far ahead of the rest of he's so far ahead of the game.
It's a dangerous combination when you have someone who. He now knows the game and is a bit more experienced, but he still has the ability to wing it when shit breaks down, because it's football. The perfect play isn't always going to be there, and some of the best quarterbacks, the likes of Favre, who would sometimes just sling it, and he's able to do that as well as process through his reads and make the right decision. To be able to have both qualities is a very dangerous prospect for everybody else in the AFC and the NFL as a whole. So yeah, it's a fun time to watch these young quarterbacks that are able to do a lot of things. that the traditional pocket passers can't do. It might signal a change in the shift, how quarterback is played at the NFL tier. So we'll see.
Yeah, I agree with you in that sense. But I think obviously barring, and let's touch wood, injury, I don't see them being. They can afford an injury in any other position bar Mahomes, I think, and they'll still be there thereabouts. I think this year is the year that they could definitely go back to back. I think the years after that, then you're looking at, as you said, cap issues. Especially if they go back to back, people are going to want to get paid, and deservedly so. So I think you're right. But the Chiefs, obviously a lot being said about them already. So we'll move on again. We'll go to Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. The question I have around them is, can they get the number 1 seed again? Because correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, it's only the 1 seed this year that gets the bye, isn't it?
I believe so. Yeah. That's true.
So 1 seed is more important than ever. Obviously, I think people forget last year that the Chiefs didn't get the 1 seed and went through an extra couple of games, and the Ravens had to. And obviously, again, the question around Lamar is why in the playoffs can he be stopped so easily? What's your opinion kind of on Lamar and the Ravens this year going forward?
Yeah, interestingly with the Ravens, I didn't know this until the other day. On paper, they actually have the easiest schedule in the NFL. Their strength of schedule is 0.438, which I mentioned earlier on. So that actually is the easiest. And the Chiefs have bang on the money. They have a 0.500. So they're kind of, they're middle of the table, I guess you could say, around 18th or something. So the Ravens definitely have the easier schedule, and 2 of the divisions they're going to face this year. One of them is the AFC South, which, they can blow hot and cold. And also my NFC East, who, the Giants and the Redskins, probably not going to be able to put it up to the Ravens. So there's a lot of games there in those 2 divisions that they'd be looking at winning, as well as their own division. I just can't see anybody really challenging them in the AFC North. So they'd be looking at most of those games going, we can win these. There's no reason why we should be losing many of these, given the strength of schedule that they have. So, my one concern is just Lamar just hasn't got that killer mentality, I don't think. Yeah, he's not a closer. Like Mahomes in the last 2 years, that play against the Patriots that put them out of the Super Bowl, that was on the defense. That was a defensive offside. It wasn't really on Mahomes. He was still putting up the points. Just the defense didn't hold their end of the bargain. So Mahomes is a closer, no doubt about that. He knows how to finish. I don't see the same in Lamar yet. He has this amazing regular season, and then when the chips are down and it's win or go home, he just doesn't have that closing mentality that Mahomes has. So that would be my concern about the Ravens, is that something similar again. They may blow through everybody, and then it's you got to win or your season's over. And I would always put my money on a closer, and I think Mahomes just has that edge over Lamar. I think the Ravens might rely less on his legs just to preserve him, because historically we've seen mobile quarterbacks, Jesus, they get bashed around, and their longevity might be affected a little bit. So they drafted J.K. Dobbins out at the Ohio State there to back up Mark Ingram. So I think they have a nice traditional 1-2 punch at the running back spot, and maybe take some of the pressure off Lamar having to run the ball. I'd be worried about him running for 900 or 1,000 yards or whatever it was last year. All it takes is one huge hit from someone looking to take his head off, and the Ravens are in trouble. So it'd be interesting to see how they design their offense this year. Can they lighten some of the load of him running the ball?
Yeah, I totally agree. And just to touch on your point there with Lamar, I've seen basically, since he became a starter, he is 5-4 when he runs for less than 70 yards a game. So that becomes an issue in the playoffs, when if you can stop that, which teams have done, then they're much easier to beat. And when you're one-dimensional like that, when it comes to the playoffs, as we've seen in both, it's the same in every sport, basketball, NFL, you need to have more than one way of beating someone. And Absolutely. At the moment, Lamar the Baltimore Ravens don't seem to have that. They've definitely upped their defense. They made some big trades. I can't think of the guy's name from Jaguars now off the top of my head.
Calais
Campbell, he's going in. They're a monstrous defense. They already were a monstrous defense last year. They've only gotten better. So
it's just a shame that they lost Earl Thomas. I don't know what was going on there. He must have been trouble in the locker room or something.
I think he has since he left the Seahawks. He's been a bit mad, isn't he? Just hasn't worked for unquestionable talent. like one, unbelievable player. But what you do in the locker room also impacts the way the teams view you. But I think Lemar needs to, as you said, they need to kind of see how their offense goes, run a bit more with maybe the running backs, not Lemar. And as you say, let's try and preserve him because lads are going to be out to try and make a point with him, which is unfortunate. But
exactly.
They're still going to be a very good regular season team, no doubt about it. Sticking in the AFC, then we're moving on to the Patriots, the old dynasty, basically. I have to say, I don't know, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm a sucker for buying into stuff, but I'm all in on Cam Newton and the Patriots. And I don't know why. I think it's just Cam. He's just such a fucking charismatic dude. He's just he's in incredible shape. He's a monstrous man. I forget how big he is. There was a couple of Instagram clips going around him, and he's just standing beside Julian Edelman, and he is I know Edelman's not the biggest guy in the world, but he is monstering over him. And
he is a big lad.
Oh,
yeah. I think it's incredible business from Bill once again. Like the fact that they're only paying him right now, his guaranteed money is $550,000. That's like for someone of his caliber, that's former MVP, not far removed from 15 in one season. Like, so they're paying him 550 guaranteed. The most he can earn is 1.75 million for like a starting quarterback. That's just peanuts. So fair play to Bill. Like he's the GM there as well as the head coach. Like he's a shrewd businessman. Like you said, like I'm all in with that. I think it's a great signing in that it's very low risk financially for them. Very high reward if they can get anything close to his seasons a few years ago before the shoulder started to give him issues. And it'd be interesting to see how the shoulder holds up. Like, could be a fantastic bit of business even if they get like 9-10 wins out of him for that kind of money is fantastic. I think Patriot fans are going to have to get used to seeing a different style of football from their quarterback. Like you said, he's a beast of a man. He has no problem putting the head down and fucking trucking linebackers where, we never saw Brady doing that. I think Brady has like 1,000 rushing yards his whole career. I think Cam has 5,000 in like half the space of time and 60 rushing touchdowns. So it's going to be a bit of an adjustment time for our Patriot fans, just seeing a completely different style of quarterback play that Cam Newton's more than likely going to bring. Because, Bill's the type of guy where he'll design the offense around the strengths of the players he has. And I think, Cam obviously has a different skill set to Tom Brady. So it's going to be interesting how McDaniels cooks up a package for Cam Newton based on the fact that he's more of a mobile quarterback than a pocket passer like the way Brady was. So, yeah, very interested to see. From my Patriot fans, they have him going anywhere from 5-11 to 11-5. So we'll see where it drops, maybe somewhere in the middle. But, very interesting times here in Massachusetts and New England just to see someone new throwing the ball for the Patriots. Just a bizarre time watching the Patriots play.
I'm sure McDaniels is excited though. It's a whole new playbook that he can develop now because he has a quarterback like Cam. And as you said, it's a total win-win deal for this. Like Belichick isn't expecting to have Cam next year. This is like, Cam, you play well. You'll get yourself a nice big contract to finish your kind of career off. You can go and do that. Nobody was willing to pay him that beforehand. And then Bill's like, you gave us good production this year and then we'll move on. It's a no-brainer. And again, how the Patriots always seem to pull off these deals and no other team does is a bit, I don't know, it just doesn't seem to make sense. But yes, it's, it's the same with the Spurs and basketball. The dynasty that it is and the organization that it is, it's always going to be fairly good. It's never going to be calamity. It's never going to be a disgrace. Do you know what I mean? It's always going to be fairly decent. So,
the Bill runs such a tight ship there, and the Patriot way, like it really is a way of life up there. Like anybody who goes there, 99% of them, unless you're Josh Gordon, like they all buy into the Patriot way, and it's just different than any other club. People go there, you're expected to give everything, and the trade-off for you giving everything is you probably have the best chance at getting a Super Bowl ring if you join the Patriots. So a lot of players have no problem giving up the money for a chance to win a ring. Because, 10, 20 years down the line, you look back in your career, Are you going to look back on the money you made, or do you want to leave behind a legacy and that's your Super Bowl ring? I know if I was in their position, having made a few quid already, I'd like to look back and say I won a fucking Super Bowl ring. So I can see why guys are willing to take a pay cut to play under Bill Belichick, because he's the man.
Even to say that I played for Bill Belichick or played with Tom Brady or something, that's something to say. So, as one of the most interesting teams, again, the Patriots are going to be involved heavily, but I'm really looking forward to seeing how this works, because I think the upside is, and I'm pulling for Cam. I think he's a good dude. He's not an asshole, I don't think, Cam. I think he's
just how he types all those weird characters on Instagram. Wrecked.
Yeah, it hurts my brain. I'm like, what is he trying to say here? Why is he doing that? Well,
the weird thing is that my brain can still process it and put it into actual words. That's the stranger thing about
maybe that's what he's doing. He's like, you know what? This is how powerful your brain is. He's just that's how nice guy he is. We're moving on now. Same division as the Patriots, but now that Brady has left, is this time for the Bills and Josh Allen to take the AFC East? What do you think?
Well, the vultures are definitely gathering in the AFC East, and they're ready to pick that Patriot carcass clean, and rightfully so, because they've all been punching bags for Bill and Brady over the last, 2 decades, basically 19 years, whatever it's been. Like, the record Brady had, 86-22 against the AFC East. It's just like he has beat the shit out of the AFC East for so long. Now they're like, right, Pats are in turmoil. They've got no Tom Brady. We don't know what their long-term future quarterback is. Now it's time to get our shots back in, and pick the Patriots clean while they're on the rope. So, obviously Josh Allen and the Bills starting to build something there. They're, rightfully so. They're the main challengers. I think Vegas has them at like plus 165 or something like that, and the Pats are plus 110. So they're certainly closer together than they have been in many, many years with the odds makers. In a similar vein to Lemar, like, I don't think Josh Allen is as good as Lemar, but he doesn't have, I just can't see him closing the way Mahomes has closed. And like, he just, like we saw last year, he had a great opportunity. His defense did so well, and there were times where all he had to do was just be above average at quarterback and just put a few touchdowns on the board, and you were going to win most of their games. And there was many times where he just wasn't doing it. And that's a concern for me. If I was a Bills fan, I'm like, has he got that killer streak? Can he finish off teams when they're on the ropes? Mahomes can. Lemar can to a certain extent. I just don't know if Josh Allen can as much, because his defense is going to keep him in it every year. The Bills' defense is notoriously good. Now he's got Stephon Diggs, a legitimate home run hitter on the outside to go with John Brown, who is a little bit underrated. Like, for someone so small, he actually plays a lot bigger. I just worry that Josh Allen just hasn't got the mean streak in him to get the job done. But it's certainly going to be interesting to see them go toe-to-toe now for the AFC East. They're a lot closer than they have been. I think Brady won it 17 times out of 19.
Yeah,
it's something crazy.
They were saying that it's the best bet every year, just to back the Patriots to win the AFC East. Like, it's never going to lose. But this, like, as a Bills, if you're a Bills fan, you finally have a bit of hope, which is a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know, but it's hope nonetheless. So it'd be interesting to track them this year.
Yeah, as some people say, it's the hope that kills you, though. It's sometimes,
Yeah, I know,
it's like you get your hopes up too much, and then your dreams are crushed, and then you're back to square one. But
exactly.
I definitely think the Bills can make a push. It just all depends really on which Cam Newton shows up. If Cam Newton shows up and his shoulder isn't holding up, absolutely, the Bills have a great shot at taking back the AFC East. If the Cam Newton from 5 years ago shows up, it's going to be difficult for the Bills to hang with them. But there might only be a game or two in it when it's all said and done. At the end of December or whatever it is. It's going to be a juicy one.
Yeah, from one of the least competitive divisions now to one of the most competitive, which is good.
Yeah.
Been watching a lot of NFL kind of coverage, and I'm seeing a lot of buzz about the Steelers and the Big Ben talk. And apparently he's back. Apparently he's looking pretty damn good. So my question is to you, Gary, is Big Ben still a very good quarterback in the NFL?
You might have to ask me again after the Monday night game against my Giants. I'll have more game tape on him and see.
Well, that's a good way to looking at it. Are you afraid of Big Ben going into that game?
I wouldn't be afraid of Big Ben. I think I think it's fair to say the sun is starting to set on his career, which is fair enough. Like, you know, he was in the same draft as Eli and Philip Rivers in 2004, and you know, Eli is gone. Philip Rivers is on the back nine of his career. I think it's fair to say that Big Ben is going in a similar direction. You know, when he tore up his elbow against the Seahawks in whatever it was, week 3 or 4, it was September time last year. Like, that was a fairly significant injury he had. And it took a lot of surgery and a lot of rehab to get him back to where he was. You know, Big Ben's always been known for having serious zip on his passes. And I'd be interested to see now if he can zip it through the tight windows. Like, you know, we all remember the throw to Santonio Holmes to win the Super Bowl against the Cardinals. Like, there's not many people that could have put that zip into that window the way Big Ben did. So, yeah, I'd be interested to see how the surgery on his elbow affects his throwing motion, and if he can still put the hot sauce on it the way he used to. I wouldn't be too worried about him. I'm more intrigued, to be honest, just to see how the rehab has gone. But yeah, like you said, a lot of NFL pundits saying he's been looking great so far, but like a lot of QBs, they haven't had a chance to play some preseason yet, so he hasn't really had a chance to properly test the arm against, you know, real life defenses coming against them. So he might be sloppy. I would imagine he'd be fairly rusty a few games in September. Thankfully, one of those is against my Giants, so maybe we'll get the win over him there. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can never count out someone that's won 2 Super Bowls. It's just, they've got the experience. They know what it takes to win. No matter what age they are, they always have that fire in their belly, which got them to 2 Super Bowls to begin with. So probably going into the Hall of Fame. I would hope he still has something left in the tank. I wouldn't like to see him just bow out because his elbow is fucked up. So yeah, hopefully he plays well and hopefully he does his thing, just not this Monday against the Giants.
Yeah. Game 2 onwards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Why, you bring up a good point there. He does seem to be one of those quarterbacks that just doesn't seem to get, I don't know, the respect, especially in the last couple of years. And don't get me wrong, his performances sometimes have been lackluster. But why do you think that? Like, as you said, a 2-time champion, is it the off the field kind of stuff? Is it the fact that he's never really been in incredible shape? Why does Big Ben not kind of get the same credit that I think a lot of other quarterbacks of his stature do?
That was a great question. It could be honestly a fair mix of both. You know, he's had those off the field things, whether stuff happened or not is a debate for another day. And just you wouldn't look at him and you wouldn't look at Big Ben and be like, that's your prototypical quarterback the way he looks. Yeah. You know, he's a big lump of a man. He kind of awkward looking, like, whereas you look at someone like, you know, someone who's maybe in better shape, like a Mahomes, or, you know, lean, athletic. Yeah, someone like that. So maybe it's a combination of both, but that's a good point you bring up. He's never kind of gotten the same plaudits as some of his peers around the same level of talent as him. But look, he's still got the 2 rings for Steeler Nation, so he'll let those do the talking. Yeah, exactly. When his career is over, he'll just whip out the hand with the two rings on the fingers, and that'll be that.
Yeah. Which that has to be an incredible feeling when you do that to someone.
Exactly. Yeah. I saw. I was commenting on a Facebook status earlier on, and it was I mentioned Plaxico Burress, and I was talking about how a couple of years ago he was here in Boston for a UFC event, and he was buckled, and he was trying to wash a load of ketchup off his t-shirt because he drunkenly spilled a load of food all over himself, and he's in the bathroom, and all these Patriot fans copped who he was. They're giving him dogs abuse, and he's mumbling something under his breath, and then someone says, "You're like washed up, you're a has-been." He just whips out the hand out of his jean pocket, and he's got the Super Bowl ring. the faces on the lads, they shut up fairly quick. It was so funny.
What do you say?
What can you say? I mean, me standing there as a Giants fan, I was secretly delighted that he did it. But you know, you let the rings do the talking for you sometimes.
Exactly. That brings back to your point. Like, do you want the money or do you want the, you know, if he took out his wallet, it would have made the same difference, you know. You brought up Phil Rivers there, same draft class as Big Ben. Rivers with a different team now with the Indianapolis Colts, which is a decent young team, and finally a strong offensive line. because Rivers in the last 10 has been sacked at least 3 times, in the last 10 seasons. So very much a bet-up quarterback, and a man, as you said, very much in the back line of his career. Now should have plenty of time to throw the ball. Is this what the Colts needed? A good, experienced quarterback to kind of take that next step?
Yeah, well, the first thing I want to know is how he got his 56 kids and a wife over to Indianapolis in a camper van, because I know he was still living in San Diego even though they had moved to LA. Like every week he was going up and down in his RV camper van from San Diego to LA on the Pacific Coast Highway.
The money he saves on condoms, he puts into fuel. So
yeah, seriously,
that's what he does.
The man could pretty much put together a whole offense now at this point.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, he suffered a bit there behind a below average offensive line in San Diego and Los Angeles, and now he's got one of the best. The fact that they were able to let one or two go in free agency and not really bat an eyelid just kind of shows you how confident they are in their starting 5. And I'm pretty sure the Indy O-line were the only starting unit to start all 16 games together or something like that. I think they might be the only team in the NFL. So, you know, from playing football and being friends with offensive linemen, having that unity and it's probably one of the most important units in football because they really do work as a unit. If the offensive line isn't working in sync together, your team is bollocksed. So the fact that he's got 5 guys there who know each other inside out, play week in, week out is definitely a big thing. They got Jonathan Taylor out of Wisconsin as well, who was a stud running back there in the Big 10, Big 12. So that's going to help. Marlon Mack rushed for over 1,000 yards last year. So that's a nice little 1-2 punch they've got in the running game. T.Y. Hilton, he's been banged up quite a bit over the last few years. I'd be concerned about that. But they got Paris Campbell last year, rookie out of Ohio State. So, I mean, they've got weapons there for sure. I don't know. It's hard to get excited about Phillip Rivers, even though I loved what he did. He was so good for so long in San Diego and LA. I don't know. There's just something about him. I just can't get too excited about Phillip Rivers in Indianapolis. I don't know if it's just Indy in general or it's like I just look at it and it doesn't blow me away for some reason.
No, I know what you mean. I feel kind of same. I've never been overly excited by Phil Rivers. He's a good trash talker, which sometimes is good for audio clips. But I just kind of want to highlight Quentin Nelson because first of all, monster of a player. But I'm an NFL fan, but I'm in no means like X's and O's, like how things work. That necessarily doesn't. I'm not really into that, but I've never watched so much film of someone blocking or, leading the way for a runner. He just makes it so entertaining because the fact that he's just a bowling ball going downhill. But he loves it. Even the fact that he's always over picking up his running back first. He seems to have a real dog in him. And I think, as you say, like having an offensive line in front, they're going to want to protect Phil Rivers and they're going to take great pride in protecting Phil Rivers because they all know the stats. They don't allow a lot of sacks, and that's what a lot of their game is based on. So I think they're going to be good if Phil Rivers gives them an extra couple of touchdowns where the running game's going to do what it's going to do because of that O-line. I think he's going to be a great addition. Whether or not that's going to lead to postseason success, we don't know. We'll see.
Yeah,
looking forward to seeing it.
I agree with you. Quentin Nelson, Jesus, he's unbelievable to watch. And there's times where some of his best moments are where he doesn't have a block assignment for whatever reason. He has nobody to block, and there's a term in offensive line circles, you're looking for work. So it's like you're just looking to hit somebody, even if he's not your assigned man. You just look to kill somebody, and he's just picking up trash left and right. Yeah. If anybody comes remotely close, even if he's already engaged with another blocker, it doesn't matter. He's fucking murdering you, and that's it. He just loves contact, craves contact, and just likes obliterating people, and has fun doing it. Doesn't seem to be any animosity. He's he'll blow you away, and then he'll kind of laugh about it, and that's it. It's on to the next play. He
just loves playing football, basically.
Loves it. Yeah, he's a joy to watch, and just another great offensive lineman that has come out in Notre Dame. They seem to churn them out almost every year. It's like a factory for offensive linemen there.
And it's great to see someone like him getting a lot of that credit because it's a position where it's very much overlooked by people, including myself. As I said, if you're kind of a a casual fan, you don't look at the offensive line, you look at the wide receivers, the offense basically.
Yeah.
So it's great to see like him. I think he's made a couple of Pro Bowls already, hasn't he? 2 at least.
Yeah. I think he might be in there every year. He's been
like
in the
first
league.
name
Maybe
on
he's
this.
got it.
He's incredible.
If anybody's interested in Brian Baldinger, he does these great things called Baldy's Breakdown. He's a former offensive lineman. If you've seen him, he's been on Sky Sports, I think, a couple of times.
Okay.
He does this great series. I think he does it on his Instagram. He might even have a YouTube channel, but he does a Baldy's Breakdown, and he kind of talks about some of the X's and O's of offensive linemen. But Jesus, when he's got clips of Quentin Nelson, they're just different. He absolutely loves putting up clips of Quentin Nelson just destroying people. So for anybody interested in watching some O-line footage, definitely check out Baldy's Breakdown. They're absolutely fantastic to watch.
Exactly. Moving on now to a team that I'm very much interested in, but just because, again, foolish me, I bought into it last year. It's the Cleveland Browns. I don't know why. I like Baker's very polarizing. I like him. I think he means well. I don't think there's anything really bad in Baker. I know he's got into a few situations where he shouldn't have, whatever, off the field. But I think he does have his heart in the right place. And, I'm a big Odell Beckham fan. I think Jarvis Landry is a good offensive player, and Njoku, Myles Garrett on the defensive side, who's an absolute monster. Why hasn't this worked? And is this year? We actually got a question in from Instagram, because I put up basically saying if anybody wants to send some questions. So at Brandino91 asked, do the Browns have what it takes this year? And I think that is the question, because I bought into it last year and they went 6-10, but they also had Freddie Kitchen nightmares, as I kind of called him, as the head coach, and totally out of his depth. Now Kevin Stefanski is in. Seems like he has his shit together. Obviously, he's with the Vikings pretty successfully. He got the best out of Case Keenum when he was there. Can he get the best out of Baker Mayfield? And is this finally the years the Browns sort of fulfill the potential that they've been showing?
Great question. I won't shit on Odell Beckham too much, because there's plenty of women out there that are doing that for me.
I don't buy that, by the way. Don't buy it.
No. I watched the clip where the ladies were chatting about it, and they don't look like they're the most trustworthy when it comes to stuff like that. But we can still have the crack about it. And
exactly.
I still got 1 or 2 Odell jerseys in the closet, so I might make 1 or 2 little jokes and put them on the Facebook
page.
But
the fact that he plays for a team called the Browns, it's just
the jokes just write themselves.
Oh my god! Sorry, go ahead.
To answer the question, I bought into the hype last year. You're not the only one, so don't be too hard on yourself for that. But at the start of last year, what worried me going into the season was, yes, I was buying into the hype, but I was worried about there was a lot of egos in that locker room. You had Baker, you had Odell, you had Jarvis. There's a lot of strong, egotistical personalities in that locker room. And I said this on the Paddy Pigskin podcast with the lads. I said, what worries me is that when they're winning games, everything is all going to be rosy. But when the L's start stacking up, that's when the egos will start chirping. And that's when there'll be a bit of friction in the locker room. And if you haven't got a head coach that's able to contain it, that's when there's going to be issues. And you saw it play out last year. The L's started stacking up. You had the likes of Landry and Odell chirping across sidelines to other teams going, sign me, I want to get the fuck out of Cleveland.
Yeah.
And Baker was starting to lose the head. Like, that's what worries me, is that, yes, they are absolutely stacked with talent. They added Jay Conklin from the Titans onto their offensive line. They got Jedrick Ellis from USC, another beast of an offensive lineman. They're after shoring up the offensive line. They've got Chubb and Hunt, great 1-2 punch. They got Hooper from the Falcons. They're fucking stacked. They've got ballers and playmakers everywhere. But just worries me is still the egos. It's like, if they're not winning, I think that's when some of the lads, I think that's when Odell and Landry and some other guys will just start giving up. It's like they feel entitled to win games. It's like, we have all this talent. Why aren't we winning all these games? It's not that easy, lads. This is the NFL. Everybody is trying to win. You're not just going to be handed wins on a platter. So I think when the chips are down and when they start finding themselves in a bit of a hole, that's when the real characters will step up. Hopefully their new head coach can kind of keep the reins on them. Kitchen, he was a good offensive coordinator. I think, like you said, the head coaching job is a step too far. Now he's the tight ends coach at the New York Giants. I think that's probably more on his level. But yeah, that would be my concern, is that can they keep the egos and the personalities in check? If so, can they focus their energy into more positive mindsets? Like, right, we're in a dogfight here, excuse the pun. We have a good chance here. We've got a lot of talent. We can still win. If it goes the other way and lads start getting at each other's throats, the Browns are toast again. They're just one of those teams that's destined to fuck it up every year. We always say the Jets are going to jet. I think the Browns are always going to Brown. There's just teams that are every year somehow fuck it up. And they're, the Jags, the Lions, the Giants recently. They find a way to just fuck up things every year. And no matter the talent they have, the coaching they have, they still find a way to blow it in unique circumstances. So I hope for the Browns this isn't another year, but there's no excuses for them. The talent they have is unbelievable.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it is, I hope they do well, because I don't like to see any franchise be that bad for that long. And obviously it helps that they had the Cavaliers winning a title there a few years ago, but it's been barren for a long time. And as you say, I like a lot of the players on the team. As I said, I like Baker. I think he's a good quarterback. I think there's obviously still question marks around him, but I think he is strong-minded enough to kind of stick with this. And I think they changed GM as well. So I think when you do sort of stuff like that, a lot of the issues with teams like that, it is the organization. It's not just the players. It's from the ground up and from the top down. So having a new GM, having a new head coach, it will freshen things up a bit, which I think can only be good if you're a Cleveland Browns fan. So let's hope. As I said, I hope they do well. I think I like watching them play. And I think they will do better than last year, but it's just a case of how good will they do. We'll see.
Yeah.
Moving on to our last team then, and also just thanks to @Brandino91 for sending that question. Moving on to our last team in the AFC that I find, well, not that I find interesting, but that I want to talk about is Joe Burrow and the Bengals, because Joe Burrow has, again, as someone who doesn't watch much college football, I obviously knew about him in LSU because they were doing really well, but do I know if he's really going to be a great NFL quarterback? I don't really know. And with a lack of preseason and preseason games, is he going to be a decent quarterback at the pro level straight away? What do you think?
Well, you bring up some great points there. He's in, unprecedented circumstances in that he's had no preseason. So, like, the first experience he's going to get of an edge rusher trying to take his head off is going to be Joey Bosa this Sunday in Cincinnati. You probably couldn't pick, there's maybe one or two other worse guys you could have coming to kill you, Aaron Donald and one or two edge rushers. But Joey Bosa coming after you, that's going to be a rough welcome to the NFL.
And Bosa will love that too if he could get he will love that.
Well, the fact that there's some underlying narrative there, because Joey Bosa went to Ohio State and Joe Burrow left Ohio State and he became successful after he left Ohio State. So Joey Bosa is going to be thinking of that. He's like, I'm going to fucking murder you off the edge. And I'm salty as a Buckeye fan that we let the fish slip through the net there with Joe Burrow. What I would be worried about is we only really got to see one elite year of play from Joe Burrow, that being last year. If you look at his numbers from the year before, almost half of what he put up last year. For me, just personally looking at QB coming in, what I would want to see is, a consistent, a very good consistent career over a couple of years at the college level. Yes, if he's in year one and he's only been in college 3 years, fair enough. But you'd want to see fairly, high level of play in 2 years at least out of 3. But the fact that we've only seen one, it's like the sample size is so small. It's like, did he just have a great year and the planets just aligned? That you don't really know, because you don't really have much else to compare it against apart from that other season. So that would worry me, is that we're only going off one really good season. And look at all the players that LSU had drafted in the NFL. Like, he was surrounded by playmakers everywhere. So you're like, is it the team he had around him, or is it just Joe Burrow? We don't know yet. But yeah, it's going to be very difficult for him to acclimatize to NFL speed, just because he hasn't had any preseason. Even if it's only a drive or two, you at least get to experience that the NFL play clock, your internal play clock, you're getting that ball out 2 or 3 seconds. In the pro level, you probably have a little bit more time. Those are growing pains that all rookie quarterbacks go through. but they've always gone through it with the help of preseason and some scrimmages here and there. And there just hasn't been as many of those because of COVID. So it's going to be tough for Joe Burrow. Absolutely. He's got to turn a franchise around too. The Bengals don't have a winning culture. They haven't had a winning season in 5 years. So it's going to be difficult to win over the Bengals. Are just another one of those franchises that just are just a bad organization and a bad team, unfortunately. So he really has to turn things around there. But he's got a young head coach as well. That seems to be the trend that things are going. Young QB going with a young head coach. So it'd be interesting to see what they can cook up there. But yeah, I think he's going to struggle early on. And I don't, that's no fault of his own. It's just he hasn't had the experience yet. And it's a crazy time that we're living in that no other quarterback has experienced before these 2020 rookies. So he's going to have to hit the ground running, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's a strange character. I don't know what to make of him. I don't know if he's extremely arrogant or he's not. I don't know. You see the clips, but you see the clips of him coming in with the big cigar, and then and I've seen him interviewed before, but it was on Pardon My Take, so it's the Barstool guy. So again, he could be doing a bit more of a verbose character on that because of just the nature of the podcast. But then by all accounts, Coach Oregon loves him and is a massive fan and massive, will say nothing but good things about him. So I don't know. It's obviously it has to be decided, but is he the type of character that will stick with a bad franchise for a couple of years and put the work in to turn that around, or is it a case where going gets tough? I'm too good for this. I'm out. Not obviously soon, but in a year, 2-3 years, whenever his contract kind of negotiations come up.
Only time will tell. He's playing in a physically tough division there. Like the AFC North traditionally is always, it may not be technically as amazing as other divisions, but there's solid rivalries between the teams in that division because they're just so geographically close. You've got two teams in the one state alone, and Pennsylvania is not that far away. The teams in the cities in that division just don't like each other, and that trickles down to the players, and it's just very physically tough division. So he's going to get battered. There's no question about it. He's going to get battered around in his first year. He's just going to have to take the licks and stick with it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. But again, looking forward to seeing how he gets on. Okay, moving on to the NFC now. And I think, look, there's better teams probably in the NFC. Well, maybe there isn't, but I think we have to start by talking about the Buccaneers because of the fact that Tom Brady is there, and now Rob Gronkowski, and now Leonard Fournette. So it's sort of a thing now where Tampa Bay has become an amazingly attractive place if you are a free agent because of the fact that they have the Tom Brady's, the Rob Gronkowski's, and there's something seems to be building there. I'm seeing, again, a lot of NFL analysts are tipping the Buccaneers to win the NFC.
Jesus.
Is it too much too early with this team? Again, obviously Brady's there, but what Brady are we getting? We're not getting very athletic Brady. We've never gotten a very athletic Brady, but we're especially not now. Gronk took a year off. Is he still Gronk? Is he fully healthy? Has he recovered from his long-term injuries? What do you think? Is it all too much hype at the moment with the Bucs, or are they actual properly contenders?
Well, to talk about Brady's health, first of all, and this sounds like I'm actually plugging the TB12 method, but I've actually done a few of those. I've actually been to the TB12 Center a few times and taken a few of the classes. And, I have to say, they're fucking good workouts. I can see how, a guy that's, 40 plus is doing those workouts a few times a week. I could definitely tell a difference, doing some of those workouts, even though I'm only playing a bit of flag over here, but flag football over here is at a fairly decent level, and some other slower paced sports like golf. But I had to say, I found the flexibility and the recovery rate after doing some of those classes was much better than it was before. So I have to give credit to whatever he's doing there with the TB12 method is working for him. And one thing I've learned about living in Boston, despite how much shit I talk about him, man, he is the GOAT in my eyes. The guy is just a baller. I can never count him out. Just until he's retired, I just can't count Tom Brady out. And now he's got this cast around him, Godwin and Evans. What a tandem. The two of them are top 5 in receiving yards last year, with Jameis Winston throwing the ball. So you've got Godwin, Evans. Look out for Scotty Miller, by the way. Scotty Miller, their slot receiver. He is your prototypical small white slot receiver that Tom Brady loves. So keep an eye on him. he's going to be their little pressure valve, like coming across the middle there. He's got Gronk, obviously, they're familiar with each other. Shady at running back as well as Fournette. They've got some ballers on defense with Bush and Levante David. Like, I think personally, like, I wouldn't tip them to go all the way in the NFC, but I'm absolutely excited to see what they can do. And there's two main reasons. Is one, I want to see what Brady can do away from the mothership of Bill and the Patriot way. I just want to see, can he be successful in a completely different system, environment, city, fan base, you name it. That's first of all. Secondly, I just want to see Tampa do well at something. They're literally like the losingest franchise in like the last 40 years or something like that. And a good friend of mine here, Barry, who's been on my own podcast, like, he's a Bucs fan. And I'm excited for him because he just deserves something nice for once. They haven't had much to cheer about. I just want to see, can they bring some sunshine to, a state or a city that's just been grim when it comes to football success. So I'm excited to see what they could do. It's like someone put Madden on and they're picking all these ballers to join the same team, and somehow they're squeezing them into the salary cap. I'm excited to see what they can do. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Brady operates in a different system. Can he get it done? But Jesus, he has the weapons. There's no excuse for him to not really put up good numbers with the receivers he has at his disposal. Like, he's got some real talent there. So they're going to be exciting to watch.
Well, I'm sure he's also delighted to have a decent climate for football for once, coming from Boston, obviously. Secondly, as well, I don't know if he knows this pressure or not, but he's my starting fantasy quarterback. So that's obviously probably resting on his shoulders a lot, which is tough. But I have to say as well, just you touched on the Belichick and Brady argument, and this is we're finally going to kind of see, is it Brady or is it Belichick? Do you know what I mean? Because that has always been the kind of debate. I think it's both personally, but there's no doubt about it. If Brady does go on to win a championship with a different franchise, the debate changes basically then. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, Brady was just so much better than everything else. Whereas I think, Belichick is, I think, the greatest coach of all time. I think Brady's the best quarterback of all time. I think they just happen to come across paths at the same time as well. But it will be an interesting kind of crease to that debate if he goes on to even have success, even if they get deep in the playoffs. That's still, I would say, considered a successful or a successful move to leave New England, especially if they only go, say, 8-8, which is not a bad year, but compared to what they're used to, it's going to be a fantastic kind of wrinkle to watch as well. And I'll be honest, I haven't watched much Buccaneers games over the last couple of years. I'll be watching a lot more this year.
We're spoiled because we have Brady against Breeze this Sunday in game one.
And it's at a watchable hour for me here in Ireland, which is fantastic. You know what I mean?
That's always, was it 9:30 over there?
Yes, I think it's Ireland, like 9:10 even. Even tonight's game, it's at midnight, which is like, it's okay for the first half maybe, but after that you're pushing your luck.
I think it's even later. Is it not 8 o'clock Eastern, which is 1 a.m. back home?
Oh, maybe the program
might be a little later.
Yeah.
That's you're going to have to put the coffee on or tea or whatever it is to keep you awake.
Call in sick tomorrow.
You won't be the only one, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'd say so too. But yeah, the Buccaneers obviously, and we have a question again from Sam, as you already know, Sam. Who's a mutual contact between us, but he's basically just asked, like, how long can Brady continue to do this? Because as you said, you've done the TB12 method. Is this actually a case where he can go on into his late 40s, possibly longer?
Like, he does a lot of things right, to be fair to the guy. I've read that book. I've read that book live on my podcast, and scientifically I've ripped the piss out of it because I'm a scientist myself. But like, a lot of what he does, it works for him. He's not like, when he's plugging the TB12 method, he's not saying this is 100% going to work for you. He's just saying, this has worked for me. It's allowed me to play at an elite level for a long time where people are trying to kill me every Sunday and I'm still able to win and my body is still able to do what I needed to do. He's not going to say it's going to change your life. It's just, he's like, try it. If it works for you, fantastic. If it doesn't, no harm, no foul. It's worked for me. Everybody's body is different. So he's put those disclaimers in and he's smart to do it. But like, there's a lot of aspects of what he does in his training regimen that are like, I can totally be on board with. I'm like, some of the science behind it is certainly sketchy with Alex Guerrero. Like, he's a bit of a snake oil salesman.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
A lot of the training methods, I have to say, are very, very good. Like, so I can see why they could benefit somebody. they just may not benefit everybody. So, you know, he's putting the work in. He takes care of his body. He, you know, I don't think he drinks really. Maybe the odd beer or here or there. Like, he's very particular about what he eats, and you know, he's doing everything that works for him, and it's gotten to this stage. So, you know, Father Time is undefeated. Eventually, his body is just not going to allow him to do it. And you know, the last year or two, I think we've saw signs of the arm strength started to dip a little bit. Maybe the speed, process, and defenses. So, you know, in fairness, the guy is over 40. It's inevitable that's going to happen. He's just prolonged, you know, the onset of age when it comes to playing quarterback. So what he's doing is working for him. And yeah, let's see if he can keep doing it for Tampa.
What I'm always amazed when it comes to Brady is he still has the desire to play. The man has achieved everything you can achieve multiple times, and he still has the desire to play. Like, that's the incredible part. The fact that he meant to. He can have quite the cushy life right now. Go off and play some golf, and he'd be happy out. But he's still and to move to a different franchise, and it's just incredible. You have to look. I understand. I get sports. When someone's that successful, it's very easy to hate them. But my God, you have to respect a lot of it.
Absolutely.
Right, we'll move on. The 49ers, interesting team, interesting quarterback situation. We can get on to that, but my question kind of is for you, is the Super Bowl hangover real? Because, again, a stat I've seen is that it's very rare for a team to lose the Super Bowl and then come back the next year and win it. It's only happened 3 times in the Super Bowl era. So are San Francisco, unfortunately, going to kind of fall to that as well?
It's a great point. That was one of the first things I was going to say, was that the phenomenon exists. Super Bowl hangover is a legitimate thing. Like, you know, very few teams, like you said, have gone back to the big dance after losing it the year before. And to be honest with you, I think Jimmy G got found out a little bit in the playoffs. Like, if you look at the numbers he put up, right? 400 in 3 playoff games, right? 3 ints, 2 touchdowns, only 427 yards in 3 games. Like, Mahomes probably put up, like, apart from the interceptions, he probably put up those numbers in one half of football.
Yeah.
And Jimmy G only did it in 3 playoff games. That's a concern for me. I think maybe the blueprint there to stop the 49ers might be just, if you can shut down the run game. You know, Mostert came on great there at the end of the year, which is a great start. He's been cut by a lot of teams, and he found his legs with the Niners. Like, the run game was carrying them there. Like, I think the blueprint is, if you can stop the run game, maybe bracket Kittle, you know, give whoever's on him a bit of help over the top, because he is a beast, and force Jimmy G to beat you over the top, especially now with Deebo Samuel's a little bit hurt going into the year. He's been a great possession receiver. And even the rookie out of Arizona State, Brandon Ayuk, I think I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his surname correctly. Like, they have a few lads that are beat up already. I think if you force Jimmy G into trying to beat you deep, that's when he's gonna encounter problems. Like, the money they're paying him, don't really think he's shown or justified the money they're paying him when you look at the numbers. So I can't see them going back again. I just think Jimmy G hasn't shown me enough in a playoff run to warrant them going back to the Super Bowl. So yes, I think that they will suffer from a violent Super Bowl hangover, and I can't see them being there in the big dance come February.
Yeah, I agree with you. I will defend Jimmy G in some aspect. I think that, again, it's because of the position he plays, but I think there's a lot to be said for a player like that. You know, it was clear against, I think it was Green Bay, where, you know, they just ran the ball over and over again. You know, why is it so bad for a QB to be like, look, this is working, I want to win games? Do you know what I mean? I think people, especially because it's the quarterback position, and players like Mahomes you bring up has just revolutionized that. But I think people kind of give him a bad stick because of that. He was like, "Look, it's working. You know, I don't need to throw the ball here." I agree. In the Super Bowl, it kind of got found out because they needed actually for him to start throwing, and unfortunately, that didn't really work. But I think he is. I don't know. I think this year we'll find out a lot more about him because he's gotten a bit more experience under his belt. But as you say, he's making a lot of money. He's got a very good team around him. But history would say this is not going to be a fantastic year for him. But we'll see.
He has something going for him. He is a fucking gorgeous human being. I'll give him that much. He is on him. And yeah, I know the ladies of Boston were absolutely devastated when he left for San Francisco, because I know he had a lot of female fans around these parts. But Christ, he's good looking.
I'm sure they're happy now the Cam's in town. He's not a bad looking job either. You know what I mean?
True.
That's not a bad replacement.
It's the headscarf though that puts the ladies off here. I think he looks like he just stepped out of Meat Street in Dublin City selling apples and oranges with the old headscarf on him.
Or the fact that if he's texting you, you're gonna have no clue what he's saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's
like hieroglyphics or something.
Yeah, he's Egyptian. We're gonna move on again. New Orleans Saints. I don't know. I don't know where to even start with the New Orleans Saints. Drew Brees, obviously the quarterback, but is Drew Brees still the main guy, or are we going to see Taysom even having more throws this year? Brees normally starts very well, but as the season goes on, tends to sort of phase out of it. And last year in the playoff games, definitely looked as if he was sort of not done. I don't want to say done for a man of his career, but on the way to being done. How do you see the Saints going on this year? Is it still Drew Brees' team, or is it starting to become more of a Taysom Hill kind of team?
Great question, because it's interesting that they gave Taysom Hill so much money. Like, he's getting 21 million, I think, over 2 years. So, like, that's a fair bit of money to give a guy who, you know, you want to be getting him regularly into the playbook if you're paying someone 21 million. Like, I know backups get a lot of money anyway, but we've seen that he's such a Swiss Army knife. The guy can do it all. Like, he can throw, he can run, he can play tight end. And I think Brees, like, he all but admitted that I think this might be his last year, because he was in an interview, I think it was yesterday, he said, like, he's on borrowed time, basically. He's saying Super Bowl or bust. And, you know, just some of the heartbreaking circumstances that they've gone out of the playoffs over the last few years, you know, the PI call with the Rams, the busted tackle against the Vikings, the walk-off touchdown for Stephon Diggs, like, just some absolutely heartbreaking losses at the death. I think this might be the last roll of the dice for Drew Brees. And look, if Taysom Hill can do what he's shown he can do and do it consistently, like, if Brees can't get it done either at the tail end of this year or he walks away, like, why not give him a chance and see what he can do? It's a great story. Like, you know, he came out with he was on nobody's radar, and then he burst onto the scene. He could do all these things at the quarterback spot. Why not give him a chance? You got to, you know, if it's not working for the Saints, they're just not getting to that last level. Why not change it up and see if he can bring something extra to the table? But I like Drew Brees. Like, he's been just so consistent over the years. But his arm strength is starting to wane a little bit. Fair enough. The age that he's at, it's bound to be expected. Thankfully, he has Mike Thomas, who catches literally everything that's thrown at him. But yeah, I would be concerned if he just hasn't got the bomb anymore. If he just can't throw that 50, 60-yard bomb and stretch the field, as opposed to throwing 4 or 5-yard, you know, routes to Mike Thomas all the time. He needs to get the ball down the field quicker. I think he might have a bit of juice left in the tank. I think he's got one more run in him, and then he's probably going to call it a day, regardless of what happens this season. Be sad to see him go. He's been such a great quarterback for the Saints and just the NFL in general. He's been really good. Be sad to see him leave.
Beloved by his city and by his teammates. But obviously, he had a bit of a blip this off season, but we won't get into it. But
I think he meant well. I don't think he meant, like, he is a good guy. I don't think he meant any animosity. It was just, I think it was a bit of the context at which people took it. And there was a bit of outcry. I don't really think he meant that in bad by it. I know his teammates have his back.
Oh, yeah, 100%. You could tell when he broke the record last year. Was it last year he broke the record? I think it was last year. But you can tell by his teammates are flocking to him. They appreciate how amazing he is. And when you see the response like that from his teammates, I think that says a lot. So yeah, I hope he has a great year. Imagine if he wins the Super Bowl and goes out like a champion, an incredible end to. He has to be considered then one of the greatest of all time if he does that.
Oh, yeah.
He's got the records, got the rings.
Yeah.
We'll see.
He's definitely going into the Hall of Fame. There's no doubt about that.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Moving on to, again, I would consider top 2, if not top 3, if not top 2 quarterbacks in the league, Russell Wilson and the Seahawks franchise. One of my favorite franchises, kind of, when I started to get really into NFL, it was the kind of Legion of Boom era. They were fantastic to watch. They made defense really cool, you know, up in the cold Seattle, the playoff games, really just great to watch sort of on a Sunday night. But my question to you is, Gary, will Russell Wilson become frustrated with the Seahawks organization if they continue to sort of just kind of flail out, even though he is one of the best, if not top 2, top 3 quarterbacks in the league?
I'd say it's perfectly understandable for him to get frustrated if they don't do well. Whether he shows it or not is a different story, because like he's been such an incredible servant to the city of Seattle, both on the field and off the field. Like the work that he does there, he goes to the Seattle Children's Hospital like every other week, and he's always hanging out with the kids. Like he's done a lot for the city of Seattle, and they do love him. You know, one or two of my good friends, they are from Seattle. I used to play football with them for the Dublin Rebels, Brian Carter, and we went to the Seattle Seahawks against the Atlanta Falcons last year in Atlanta, and I was in with all the Seahawk fans, man. They fucking love Russell Wilson. And like, he's a baller, and he's, you know, he has such a good command of the offense. And I think he's asked, he's like, I think he said something like, I want to cook this year, or just let me cook, leave me in the kitchen and let me cook, or something like that. So I think he wants to sling the ball around more now that he sees he has DK Metcalf, who seems to be a nice emerging prospect there. He's just a fucking beast of a man. They've got Tyler Lockett as well, who's a great little route runner. They've got a good tandem there to throw the ball to. So I think Russ just wants to start slinging it. Secretly disappointed that the Giants didn't make a run for him, because I know there was talk that Sierra maybe wanted to move to New York to further her showbiz career. So a little bit sad that they didn't make a move for Russell. I would have liked to see him in Giants blue, but I don't know. I can't see. It would just be strange to envision Russell Wilson in a uniform that's not a Seattle Seahawk one, because he came out of Wisconsin a bit under the radar. Like Matt Flynn was the anointed quarterback, and Russell just outplayed him in training camp and took the job. And Jesus, he was one play away from winning back-to-back Super Bowls. So, Malcolm Butler put a stop to that. So he's done a lot for Seattle football. He's put them back on the map again. Just can't see him playing for another team. I don't know how many. I don't know how many years are left on his deal, but
I think there's at least 2, isn't there?
Yeah, I'm sure he probably has some sort of opt-out or trade clause.
Yeah, like everything that there's always opt-outs in some stages, but he does seem like the loyal, not one of the few, but it's becoming less and less common nowadays where the player is completely loyal to a franchise. Obviously, it helps when they're never going to get rid of him unless unforeseen circumstances happen. But I hope, as I say, I think he is, by all stats, since he's come into the league, 4th quarter, he is like the man in the league. Touchdowns, everything. He loves the pressure, and he seems to thrive in it. So definitely let him cook, as he says. Give him everything he wants. Just let him do what he wants. At this stage, why not? When you're
exactly.
Let him do what he wants. Keep him happy, and it can lead to some great things. And I like Seahawks. I hope to do well, and I hope to continue to see Russell Wilson doing well. Moving on, this team it's one of my friend Sam, who's regular on this podcast, his favorite team, the Philadelphia Eagles. I can't get my head around Carson Wentz. What is the story with him? It's a weird story. He comes in, he's MVP candidate, gets injured, and since then, obviously it takes a while to recover from injury, but in his absence, you've got Big Dick Nick Foles coming in, wins the Super Bowl in incredible fashion against the Patriots, and Wentz took the job back over when healthy, but it just seems to not be able to get going. What's your views on Wentz overall, and why is it seems to not click?
Well, I hope he plays well, because I drafted him as my quarterback in 2 leagues, and I stacked him with Zach Ertz at tight end, so I fucking hope he does something for me. But
he went last in our league, actually, amazingly enough.
Very last of the quarterbacks?
Like last round as well.
Oh, wow. Jesus.
It's injury concerns.
Yeah, totally. I can totally see that. Yeah, he is injury prone, and some players are just injury prone. Sometimes there's just no rhyme or reason to it. It's just some players get hurt, and there's no logic or basis to it. It's just they get hurt, they take longer to recover, and that's it. But like you said, when the fact that Big Dick Nick took, we all thought when Wentz went down, that's it. Yeah. The Eagles are toast. They're not going to do anything. And then Foles took them to the promised land and won them the Super Bowl. Like, I think that'll always be, I wouldn't say a stain, but it's always going to be a monkey on the back of Wentz. Like, you got to be able to shift that by winning a Super Bowl yourself, It's like you did all the donkey work, and then Foles comes in at the last minute and, like, takes all the plaudits. So like that's always going to be on his mind. To be fair to him as well, the Eagles have had a lot of injuries over the last few years. You know, my good friend Jerry, who's on the podcast with me, like he's, you know, every other week he's texting me saying an Eagle went down. I'm like, Jesus, who is it now? And they already have injury concerns at the wide receiver spot. And like last year, they were getting so bare in the wide receiver closet. They had a lad who was, to be fair, he played pretty well. He was in the Alliance Football League a couple of weeks beforehand, Greg Ward Jr. Like that's how low down they were having to go just to get guys suited up to play wide receiver, because Jeffrey was hurt and, you know, all these guys were hurt. Their rookie, Jager, out of TCU, he's hurt already. So it's like, there's only so much you can do when you're limited at wide receiver and, you know, you've only got Ertz and maybe one other guy to throw to. There's only so much Wentz can do. That's probably the time where he's like, fuck it, I got to tuck it and run, and he's getting slapped around a little bit. So it's going to be tough. He's got to be able to somehow find a way to preserve his body. He's already got injury concerns going in. I think there's still a questionable tag beside his name. It's a tough one because he's a good player when he's fit. When he's firing on all cylinders, he is a good football player. It's just, there's always niggles with him. He's always carrying something going into a game. He's like always on the injury report. And I don't know. It's just, maybe that's just the way his body is. He just gets hurt and he can't shake it.
I had I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a doctor here in Galway, but he does a lot of TV and stuff like that because he's a specialist in like injury prevention, basically. His name's Dr. Brian Higgins, but he was on the podcast and I asked him that question. I was like, can people be injury prone or is it a myth? Is it just pure luck? And he said, look, people can be injury prone, but a lot of times they have some, whereas the makeup of their actual body, the way they walk, they're not doing something correctly. And it's leading to certain niggles. And if that could be the case with Wentz, look, it could be his body doesn't recover the way that it should. And that has to be obviously incredibly frustrating because, as you say, when he's on, he is fantastic. He was an MVP candidate that year before he got injured. And who knows, probably would have went on to win it. But it just has to be incredibly frustrating. As you said, that stain of Foles winning it, he has to win a championship or else that will always be spoke about when he's mentioned after he retires.
Because Foles is the man in Philly. And until Wentz wins the Super Bowl, that is never going to change. It's Foles. Foles won us the Super Bowl. Yeah. And it is tough mentally. But I'm glad you had a doctor on to back up my biology bollocks that I was talking there. That's always nice to be, a bit of peer review there as a scientist is always nice to hear. I appreciate that.
I'll back you up. Don't worry, man. Didn't even have him on the podcast. Just lied. No, he was. We'll go now to Dallas because, again, Dallas is always fun to talk about just because, I don't know, it's the Cowboys, you know?
Yeah.
I've seen today, actually, I was asking my girlfriend because they come up on Instagram how much they're actually worth. Because they're the most, expensive franchise. It's $5.7 billion is what the Cowboys are worth. Yeah. And when's the last time they won a Super Bowl? It must be
early 90s.
Early 90s.
Which when they won a few.
Yeah. So that says a lot about the brand. That says a lot about, America's team, as they're referred to. New head coach Mike McCarthy, he's formerly Green Bay Packers, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah. He took a couple of years off to chill and relax.
He's new head coach, fresh. Obviously, Jason Garrett wasn't working for quite a while, but for some reason, Jerry Jones was loyal to him, which is fair enough. But there's no doubting the talent that's on this roster, especially offensively. Ezekiel Elliott, Amari Cooper, Gallup. You've got CeeDee Lamb, which is an exciting rookie in. You've got Tyron Smith and Zach Martin. And Dak Prescott, who love him or hate him, he's a productive quarterback at worst, and possibly even more so depending on who you ask. But this team should do better than it tends to have done. Is Mike McCarthy going to be enough of a catalyst to now make that so?
As a Giants fan, I hope not.
Yeah.
But I am worried because Mike McCarthy is a good head coach. He's going to come in with a fresh perspective because, unfortunately, Jason Garrett is now on the fucking Giants roster. He's their offensive coordinator. So they say one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Exactly.
Garrett is no Giants treasure. So McCarthy's going to come in and do things his way. He was, somewhat successful with the Packers. Like, I was going to roll this into Aaron Rodgers as well, because I know we were going to touch briefly on, like, I'm just going to roll it all into one package. Like,
yep.
I'm going to say, like, for what is spoken about Rodgers, I think he's a little bit overrated. And I say that because he has only been to one Super Bowl in a decade. Now, if he's been so good, like, why has he not been to more Super Bowls? He had a great head coach in Mike McCarthy. He had decent supporting cast around. Like, you know, he had Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb, and they were really good receivers. He had players around them. You know, fair enough, he didn't have a defense, but, like, there's been teams that haven't had good defenses that really good quarterbacks have carried them to a Super Bowl. Like, why hasn't he been to more? That would be my, like, I see people comparing Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. In my eyes, I don't think that's a question at all. Like, Brady has consistently gotten to Super Bowls, whether he's won or lost them. He's always been there every other year. Rodgers has been to one in a decade. And I think the fact that Jordan Love now, I think it's a kick up the hole for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I think so too.
He's a bit egotistical in that he's never had a legitimate challenge to his QB spot. He's had the likes of Kaiser and Hundley, but they were never legitimately going to take the spot. Now they've spent the first rounder on Love, and it's like, okay, this guy is coming for my job. Is it going to push him? So I think he might, just to be egotistical and prove a point, he's going to try his damnedest to hold on to his job. But, you know, in the same vein, Mike McCarthy, yes, he's a great head coach. Again, he took his team to one Super Bowl in a decade or whatever. When you break it down, he wasn't there for the last few years. But, like, to me, like, is that, I'll ask you, is that successful? Like, one Super Bowl in a decade? What's your definition of success as a head coach?
It depends on if you're a small franchise, it's very successful. But as you say, it seemed to be the common argument with the Brady versus Rodgers was more talented as a quarterback naturally, but Brady was just a stone cold killer sort of thing. That seemed to be the kind of thing. Like, Brady, Rodgers has all the talent in the world. And he does, as a quarterback. He has all the intangibles, all that sort of stuff that people always say about. But the other stuff, Brady takes pay cuts. Brady is a leader of the team. People want to die and play for Brady. I don't know if that's necessarily the case when it comes to Rodgers. And like, maybe I'm wrong with that, maybe I'm not, but there's always stories leaking about he's not happy with head coaches, he's not happy with other players. By all the Jordan Love guy, apparently he's not doing great in training camp, which I've read a few times. So maybe Rodgers doesn't feel that, you know, threatened anymore, which I think is a poor thing, because I was saying to you earlier on, I think he's going to come in here. I was hoping he was going to come in this year pissed off and just put on a bit of a show, because there was no doubt about it. He was upset by the draft pick. I think he was pretty vocal about it. So I don't know. To me, no, Rodgers won Super Bowl in that time period. I would not consider that successful, just because of the talent that he is. Yeah, I think you're right, Joe.
And the coaching, like, you know, Mike McCarthy was considered one of the best coaches in that time frame, and he only took his team, you know, once in how many years? Like, and now, like, he's going to Dallas. Like, would you, like, in my eyes, Dak is not as good as, you know, I was just saying Aaron Rodgers overrated, but, like, in my eyes, he's a better quarterback than Dak. And now we're saying, can Mike McCarthy take the Cowboys to the glory land with Dak Prescott? I don't think Dak is good enough to do it, even though, like you said, he's got a great set of he's got a great wide receiver core this year, probably one of the best talent wise. But just, like, the fact he's asking for like 40 million or whatever it is, like, where is he coming? Like, I think he's just looking at what other QBs are getting paid. And it's like, oh, well, if that's the market, that's what I deserve. It's like, well, do you deserve it? Like, what have you done? What have you done? What have you shown to deserve it? You haven't gotten to an AFC championship game. That's the sort of level you need to be at, I think, to really, like, command that sort of money. So I hope they're paying 50 million and they make shite in their salary cap. And then they have to blow everything up. That's fine with me as a Giants fan. But I do worry that Mike McCarthy is a good head coach, and he's going to come in there. Maybe he'll squeeze every last drop out of Dak Prescott. But yeah, I feel it's going to be the Eagles and the Cowboys. Just don't think the Giants are there just yet.
Yeah, I think you make a good point about the whole, like, he's asking for a lot of money, and I'd love to do, well, someone who's smarter than me, I'd love to get them to do a study and basically these max contracts, or however you want to call it in the NFL, these massive contracts and how they impact the salary cap afterwards, I would imagine 95% of the times it does not lead to team success. But just because you can in a salary cap league, you're never going to get the supporting cast around someone like that. So you make a great point. If I was someone who didn't like the Cowboys, I want him to pay, and they probably will end up paying him the money he wants, because that just seems what franchises do. Which I don't know. Are they better off doing that than trying to start off with someone new? But like there's no. I think it's not a coincidence that the Seahawks won their Super Bowl when Russell Wilson was making $100,000 a year or whatever ridiculous contract it was.
Yeah.
Because you can afford these other players on the defensive side and the offensive side that can make impacts.
Yeah, totally.
I'd love to see it, because I genuinely don't think, unless you are a Mahomes level player at the moment, because he is the bar, it's not going to work out, I don't think. So Dallas in a weird spot. I don't know what they should do. I don't know what's the best option for them. I agree with you. I don't think Dak is that level. He might prove us wrong. Who knows? Yeah. But I don't think he's that level myself now.
I think you brought up a great point there, in that, like how many quarterbacks that are on the top money have led their team into the playoff. I think I saw a graphic last year, and that it was like the top 8 or top 10 quarterbacks money-wise. Jimmy G was the only one in the playoffs. Because you had like all these. It could have been the year before. I can't remember. It was like the year before, or something like that. It was like the top 6 or 8 quarterbacks money-wise. None of them were in the playoffs based on what they were paid. And I was like, well, that's a pretty telling stat. Like, you can't surround them with the talent you need to take them all the way.
There's a reason Brady's taking pay cuts. Do you know what I mean? It clearly works, but it's amazing no other franchise seems to have caught on to that. Like, Kirk Cousins makes ridiculous money. Kirk Cousins he's not a terrible quarterback, but he's not a great quarterback. It's just he just changed the game when he got all that money guaranteed. I think it was like 84, 86 million the first time, all guaranteed. Like, that seemed to really reset everything. It's like quarterbacks were like, okay, this is now what I'm worth, because Kirk Cousins got this, and it's just going to keep snowballing. But even Jalen Ramsey's getting 41 million guaranteed now. It seems the guaranteed money seems to be going up and up, which is great. 71 million. Guaranteed?
Yeah. He's getting a $105 million deal. 71. And it's like 71 million guaranteed, something like that. Yeah, crazy money.
Fair play. Get those checks by all means. But
if you watched Hard Knocks and the house he was looking at in the hills, he can certainly afford that house now if he decides to pull the trigger on it.
Don't get me wrong, Ramsey's great, and I love me a good cornerback who talks shit. I was a big Richard Sherman fan. I do like Ramsey, but that's a lot of money for a cornerback. I feel like cornerbacks, you can kind of pick up some very decent ones for a lot less. But again, I'm not an NFL GM.
But that's him, Goff, and Donald. There's 3 positions, and it probably takes up, I don't know, off the top of my head, maybe a third of the salary cap on 3 players. That's not going to be sustainable long term.
No, I wasn't going to bring up the Rams, but I was watching Pat McAfee, and they were $400,000 over the salary cap before the Jalen Ramsey move.
I don't know how they do it. I don't know where they find the money from.
I don't know. Well, LA, man, there's probably God knows where they're getting the money from, but it's fair play to them. We'll wrap it up soon enough. So I want, before we go, let's talk about your Giants, because they're in a weird spot at the moment. Obviously, drafting Daniel Jones a few years ago, it was not very well looked upon, taking him that high. I don't know what your opinion was at the time, but what's your opinion now on Daniel Jones? Is he the right quarterback for the Giants at the stage that they're at? Do you think he can become a great quarterback, or is this sort of back into limbo for the Giants?
I'll pat myself in the back here. I did have the Giants taking Daniel Jones in the draft. It was a slam dunk, but it wasn't with their first pick. It was with the second pick that they had in the first round, which I think was 22 or something like that. They took Dexter Lawrence out of Clemson with that pick. So I did have him mocked to go to the Giants, and it made too much sense. The fact that his coach at Duke was the same coach that Eli and Peyton had. It just made so much sense. It was like, it was always going to happen. I just was disappointed a little bit, the fact that there was so many defensive studs on the board. I felt like they could have got DJ in the 20s, no problem. So that pissed me off a little bit. He had his teething problems like any rookie quarterback. Like, he showed flashes of brilliance of why they drafted him. Like, the first few games, I was like, Jesus, he's making his reads very well here, and he's zipping the ball out. And I think once he got a little bit more comfortable, it almost worked against him because he was prolonging plays. And you could see he had a lot of fumbles. He had a lot of turnovers. And that's just because he still has the college game clock in his head. And he doesn't realize how fast the ball has to come out at the pro level, that these edge rushers are the best athletes in the country. So you got to get that ball out a fraction of a second earlier. So I think he's going to tidy those up. From a coaching standpoint, you know, I'm happy with Joe Judge now, but at the time I was a little bit disappointed that they didn't even talk to Josh McDaniels, because he was still available at the time and he was supposed to go down and interview with them. The fact that they just pulled the trigger on Joe Judge without even talking to McDaniels pissed me off a little bit at the time. But from what I've seen, he's definitely bringing his no bullshit winning mentality from the Patriots over to the Giants. Like, the man has experience winning, and a lot of winning, as a member of the Patriots. He's coming into the Giants now. There's been no winning there really for the last 5 or 6 years. He's not fucking standing for it. He's like, look, guys, this is how it's going to be. If you want to be like a Patriots, like, you know, any other team that's been successful over the years, this is how it's got to be. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Jones, I think he's going to be, it's inevitable he's going to be better than last year when he tidies up some of the fumbles and stuff like that. And now he's emerging from Eli's shadow, because he still had that, Yeah. Eli was still there. And it was probably very hard for him to think of the Giants as his team, because it was still Eli's team, even though he played a few games. Now he has the keys to the car. It's all his. You know, Joe Judge is probably going to let him loose and see what he can do. And he brings a lot of things that Eli just couldn't do over the years. And that was when the pocket collapsed, Eli just buckled. You know, he just folded like a deck chair. Whereas Jones will keep the plays alive, whether it's throwing on the run or running with it. So that's exciting for a Giants fan. You know, if Eli had nobody to throw to, that was it. Play was dead. Now with Jones, he's able to keep it going a little bit and extend it. So in that regard, it's exciting. I'm just, the wide receiver core doesn't blow me away yet. Like, Tate is not at the level he once was. They've got Slayton, who was a great little pickup near the end of the draft last year. I just don't see where the explosive wide receiver play is going to come from. So it's going to be a tricky one, but they got to be better than last year. Like, they've got Saquon there. I would be happy with 8-8, to be honest with you, just because it's a new regime at both quarterback and head coach. And then next year, let Joe Judge build on whatever he's done this year. So I take 8-8 because it's not a losing season. And then let's see what they can do next year. But he certainly has the talent. He just needs to tidy up some of the rookie sloppiness, which is inevitable for any rookie quarterback, you know?
Yeah, I think like a lot of things, it will require patience. And again, you see players like Mahomes and Lemar Jackson come in and they're immediately, you know, league level productivity. It's not always going to be like that. So, you know, once the fan base and the team have patience, then I don't see why it can't work either. But
to be fair with Mahomes, like, Mahomes sat almost a full year.
Yeah, he did behind
and Alex Smith.
Or Alex Smith.
I think it was Alex Smith, right? He sat like a full year almost behind Alex Smith, like, whereas Jones was thrust into the limelight a bit sooner, and Lamar I think he only sat 6 weeks behind Joe Flacco. So he certainly hit the ground running, but Mahomes certainly got a good full year of learning before he really started to blow up. So hopefully the same with Jones. He has that experience now.
And what goes against Jones is the draft pick that he was chosen as well. That's always kind of thrown back in his face as well. So which is unfortunate, because that's not his fault. Do you know what I mean? He was just picked when he was picked.
And their third pick from that draft in the first round is gone now. They got rid of DeAndre Baker over the whole potentially robbing people with a gun issue that he was at some party down in Florida or something. So
it's not a good look.
No. So we're already, that's 1 for 3 now that hasn't panned out. So, you know, they better strike rich on the other two or get them on the hot seat.
Anyone tells me that NBA or NFL drafts aren't pure lotteries, I don't know. They 100% are. There's so much you can do, and then after that, it's just pure luck. But Sam has... I have to bring up the miracle at the Meadowlands just because Sam has... I liked your response on his tweets. You reported, unfollowed, and all.
Stop! I get enough of that from my buddy Jer, who's a Donegal man here, also in Boston, big Eagles fan. He busts me, but every now and then it'll pop back up on Facebook or something. He'll fucking tag me, and just open up the wounds that I thought I've healed, So I get it all the time.
I was my fantasy draft that I was in. Sam was in it too, and we were. It took forever, the draft, but the last round, he was like, he texted me excitedly, being like, "Deshaun Jackson's still available," and I was like, "What do you want me?" There's a reason he's probably still available. Do you know what I mean? But,
he's probably going to be starting now for the first few weeks.
I know.
It looks like there's so many injuries.
I have Miles Sanders as my running back, so I'm hoping he gets a lot of reps.
Yeah.
We'll finish with two questions. Just again, I put up on Instagram and Twitter about questions, so I took two. One in from @Donny Corlam, basically asking, do the Jets stand any chance of getting to a divisional playoff round?
No. On to the next one.
Yeah.
Just the Jets. The Jets are going to jet. The Jets will always jet somehow. Yeah. They'll always make a way. They'll always find a way of fucking things up. Sorry to whoever asked that question, but the Jets are one of those teams that always find a way to blow things, no matter the talent they have. And I know Darnold hasn't blown me away either.
No, again, there was so much expectation with him coming in, especially from NFL analysts being like, this guy is like, he's one of those kind of boring, sort of just generically boring kind of quarterbacks that tends to be very productive, like your Brady's basically, or your Eli Mannings and your Peyton Mannings. But again, is it the fact that he's just with the Jets?
Could
possibly.
Very possible.
@Donny Corlam, who asked that question, probably is not going to listen to any more podcasts, so thanks for that, Gary. You could have given him some hope, something positive. We'll finish then with discussion, although I'm pretty sure we all know what the favourite is, but the potential rookie of the year, obviously Joe Burrow is going to be massively favoured. But is there any sort of dark horses or contenders that you should think we should look out for?
Overall rookie of the year? Or
yeah, both. Give us both, sure.
That is a good question. There's so many explosive playmakers that were drafted in the first round. As much as it kills me, I'm gonna say CeeDee Lamb, purely because he wears number 88 and I wore number 88 and he's a wide receiver just like I was. It would kill me if he helped the Cowboys do well, but I just think those guys that came out of Alabama, the wide receivers, were fucking really good. And I think the fact that he has Amari Cooper, a fellow Bama guy, on the other side, I think he's in a good environment there to learn from a really good route runner. And Amari Cooper is one of the best in the business. So he's got all those things on his side. Whether he has an elite quarterback throwing him the ball, well, we've already had that discussion. Yeah. But I think if he can get him the ball, I think CeeDee Lamb might be a good one. But great question though, because there's so many good players that came out of the draft this year. So many great offensive linemen as well who have gone under the radar. Like the draft was just stacked for offensive linemen this year, but they're never going to win Rookie of the Year.
No, unfortunately not.
It's just the Hog Mollies never win Rookie of the Year, unfortunately. Yeah, but
exactly.
What about you? You're going with Joe Burrow?
Oh, Joe Burrow's obviously the favorite, but I was thinking CeeDee Lamb as well, just because we said that is such a talented offensive unit, and if Mike McCarthy, if it works out, he's going to be a lot of, and it's Dallas, there's going to be a lot of highlight plays. There's going to be a lot of people watching those games. A lot of it comes down to that. It's just who's watching the games. Dallas get a lot of TV time. So I think CeeDee Lamb is a sneaky good bet, but I can't imagine if Joe Burrow has any way sort of a decent year, I think it's going to be Joe Burrow, which is a bit boring.
Fair point. No, it's fair.
Defensively then, do you have any picks? This is where I would struggle probably to pick one.
Jesus, I've had a brain fart now. I can't even. I don't know. I'd have to answer that one on the Instagram post, I think. I'd need a minute to think about that one, I'd say.
Yeah, no, it's no problem. Again, unfortunately, it's sort of overlooked a lot of times. So, but no, we'll use that as a segue to get you back on sometime, Gary. So that's what we'll do.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me on.
No worries, man.
We've been talking a long time, and it didn't even feel like we were chatting that long.
Hour and a half gone by, so hopefully people are actually still tuned in here.
This is a Joe Rogan, almost Joe Rogan like podcast there.
I wish I was getting that Spotify money. Tell you that.
You and me both.
Yeah, exactly. Gary, appreciate you taking the time out of your day to hop on here. I appreciate it as always. And look, I hope to have you back on again sometime. It's been a pleasure to talk a bit of football with you. So thank you very much, and we'll have you on again sometime if that's okay with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's like I said earlier, it's nice to be on the other side of the table for once.
Exactly. No problem.
Being the interviewee as opposed to the interviewer. So even though it didn't feel like an interview at all, it was just a great chat about football. So yeah, thanks very much for having me on.
No worries, man. See you soon.
Thank you.